When it comes to two-sample t-tests, why would you ever choose to be potentially wrong? Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, we didn't have computers and calculators to do our heavy-duty statistical calculations. Statisticians understood this and offered, well, if you make certain assumptions, you can assume some simpler calculations. For example, if you were to do a one-sample test of the mean or the average versus a target value, you'd run a one-sample t-test. Except if you assumed that the standard deviation was known, then it became easier. Now, if you're old like me, the first statistical test you learned was a one-sample z-test. But with today's technology, hopefully that test has been pushed into oblivion. What standard deviation is ever known? Then the exercise is silly anyway, because you have done a census and it's no longer a statistical test. If we are in the world of prediction, nothing is ever known. But it made computations simpler to assume it. Now we get to one in the year 2025 that is still out there and is still baffling to me. The two-sample t-test comparing two averages. Now, one of the assumptions is whether the variances are equal or unequal. If we assume the variances are equal, formulas aren't too bad. You can actually see this. So that doesn't look too bad, all kind of doable. But if the variances are unequal and you want to get a better answer, then the degrees of freedom calculation is a nightmare. Doing this by hand was painful, and hopefully you didn't make a mistake. Let's look at that. Oh my goodness, look at that degrees of freedom. What a nightmare. So, you are motivated to assume they are equal if you're doing it by hand. Here's the 4-box of possible outcomes. So, let's look at this. If we guess that the variances are equal, and the truth is the variances are equal, we get the right answer. Good job. If we guess that the variances are unequal, and the truth is that the variances are unequal, we get the right answer. No. If we assume the variances are unequal, but they're really equal, guess what? We still get right answer. We lose a tiny bit of power for this compromise, but we get a good answer. But if we guess that the variances are equal, and in fact they're unequal, we get the wrong answer. That's not good. So, while you are thinking about the implications of that one, please like and subscribe down below. Thank you. Now, hopefully in the year 2025, you are using statistical software. Some of these software packages will ask you, do you want to assume equal variances? Hello, McFly. Why would I assume that when I always get a correct answer by assuming unequal variances? Now, in the covered wagon days, you would do an F-test and make a conclusion about whether the variances are equivalent or not. If that wasn't important to your business problem to know that piece of information, it was just a necessary step along the way. Now, here's even a funnier part. If your data are normally distributed, it doesn't really seem to matter until your sample sizes get really small. Try it out for yourself. If the data is skewed and the sample sizes get smaller, there is some benefit to assuming unequal variances. But that's a lot of energy and brain cells exerted in the meanwhile. So don't fall into a statistical software assumption trap. Always assume unequal and unknown variances. Let your software do the heavy lifting.